but hopefully illustrates another point that I've got, that actually if you ask people to engage with what they do and actually try to improve what they do and the product, and these are the Glaswegians, it's that guy worked in the shipyards on the Clyde, as he said, not pretty people, he said that, but obviously these people were very attached to the product that they built and actually proud of the product they built. And so I'd suggest it actually acts as a motivation tool as well, engaging people in the value proposition of the business. Okay, I promised to move on to a more local story or example, case study if you like. And I'm not sure if any of you know this guy? No. Okay. So this is Captain Mark Andrews, who's the harbour master at Milford Haven Port Authority, 6th largest port in the UK, largest port in Wales by a country mile, if I can use that expression. And the picture's great. It's on our website, and there's a brief case study on our website as well, so if you want to find out more, it's there. A little bit of background on Milford Haven Port Authority. 53 million gross tonnes, 3,000 shipping movements, so things coming in and out. In other words, some fairly hazardous cargo, LPG, LNG, a ferry coming in twice a day, and lots of leisure or marine traffic as well. Mark's the harbour master, so he's got to control all of that, or try to manage all of that. And as I say, some fairly hazardous products as well. 25% of the UK's refined oil products comes out or goes into Milford and then comes out to the UK, and 30% of our gas, fairly sizable in terms of turnover, not huge, and fairly decent profit, the last available figures. Okay, so Mark came on a leadership program that was run by the business school a few years back, and an organisation called Telos, and he was involved, or was asked to be involved in developing and procuring a new vessel, a new pilot boat. And traditionally they'd had 2 of these because there was 2 purposes of these pilot boats. Firstly, to get pilots out from the haven, the marina, out to the sea where the tankers would moor, and they'd put a pilot onto the tanker to bring it in, because obviously the pilots, the local pilots, had expertise of the exact sea lanes. And these tankers, hundreds of millions, some of them, quite heavy, and they need to go in properly. But another role or another job that the boats that the cutters they've got to have to do is actually patrol the haven itself. So emergencies in the haven, whether that's fires on boats or more regularly, as Mark would tell you, you've got what he calls weekend sailors. In the sea lanes, so you've got a tanker coming in worth a few hundred million with a few tons of crude oil on board, or sometimes refined oil, and some weekend sailor is in the sea lane, so that these pilot boats have to get out there pretty quickly and encourage them to move out of the way. So 2 roles of this boat, and traditionally Mark describes that we've got this on our website. Mark describes how the management would have just detailed the spec for the boat, put it out to tender, and allowed somebody to build. He decided after this leadership program that he engaged with to adopt action learning, or an action learning process, to address this. So we got people from across the organisation. He put them in what he called the boat committee, because he said, I thought they'd understand what that was about. But he got people from the shop floor. He got people from different parts of the organisation, the pilots, the maintenance crews, some of the marine engineers, a local naval architect, and asked them to come up with a spec. And they come up with this problem. And the problem was, do we have one boat that tries to do both and then potentially compromises, or do we have 2? And eventually, after they fed back their findings, or the spec that they developed to the management team and to the shop floor, there was a guy on the shop floor that said, actually, why don't we introduce a ballast tank like that you have on a submarine? In other words, you fill it with water when you need this vessel to be a lot heavier, i.e. when you go outside of the haven and you need to pull alongside a tanker that's really heavy and sat quite down in the water. So, and when you've got rougher seas, so you fill that ballast tank, it makes it a lot heavier, a lot more robust, And when you're in the haven, you release that water, it's a lot lighter, and so you can move around a lot more quickly. And that was a guy on the shop floor, a fairly junior engineer, and Mark argues actually, that would never have happened had he not introduced this kind of action learning approach and not allowed the boat committee, to communicate both up and down. And the upshot of that was this cutter or pilot boat here that's featured, or was featured in Marine Journal, a publication I'm sure you all get. And it was featured on the front page. It was showed off down at the Southampton Boat Show. And I thought it was at Earl's Court, but Mark said, no, that's just for the weekend sailors. The real boat show is down at Southampton. And essentially, it's one of the most innovative boats that have come out of piloting, as Mark tells me, in probably half a century. So a great little story as far as Milford Haven are concerned, because firstly, the crews and the authority were really happy with it. It saved them money, because they didn't have to buy two. It's much more effective than the old ones. But a better story was the local builders, Mustang, that are based in Pembroke Dock, when they showed this off at the boat show in Southampton, they had interest from a Chinese port who's since come over and actually bought one. So Milford Haven benefited, the local boat builder did, and they sold one to the Chinese. So we've actually managed to turn the tide of importing Chinese products. No, maybe, just slightly. Okay, as you can see from the delivery one, this is the actual boat that they sold the Chinese, and there's a few more on order, apparently. So, going from an international case to a more local context or local case, an example, I'd argue, of how leadership development, management development, can help change some of the thinking in an organisation and can have real benefits for a business, your business. Okay, it's supposed to finish by 10 past, so run a couple of minutes over. There are going to be opportunity for questions at the end. So hopefully that wasn't too boring for you. I can't have the clips up on the website. We can only use clips for educational purposes, which obviously this is. But I'm sure if you type them into Google, you'll find them. YouTube, sorry, or Google. Okay.